Goodbye to Texas and to the beach at Galveston. Today was a journey, by car and by ferry, into the fifth state of the trip, Louisiana, and through its hazy green swamp. Day 22 ended with the best food of the voyage so far. The last morning in Texas. It seemed a shame not to see a bit more of Galveston, so Masio and I walked out to Babe's Beach, named after Babe Schwartz, a Texas politician, in front of our hotel. It's one thing to see the water and to drive by it, but you really need to get your feet wet to know you've been there. And this was a great start to day 22. Just the wind and the surf, a few people, and lots of seagulls and pelicans. We couldn't stop watching them and trying to photograph them. It's strangely addicting, and it wasn't just us. Even other birds were sitting around watching the birds. One nearby piece of Galveston history was right under our hotel balcony. This is Rosewood Cemetery, established by a local organization in 1911 at a time that African American people were barred from burial in the city's other cemeteries. This small part of Rosewood that still exists now is being looked after again, a stark reminder of a sobering past, somewhat at odds with the clutter of Galveston Island's tacky hotels and food chains. But it was eventually time to leave. The good news is we missed a turn on the way out of town. Even the dead ends in Galveston turned out to be interesting. Eventually we found our Texas Highway 87. The cool thing about this highway is that it involves a ferry. It's free and considered part of the highway, part of the reality of modern life this close to the water. You pull your car on and the boat sets off. And I was super excited to be aboard the Ray Parker Jr. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry, it's Ray Stoker Jr. Never mind. The 30-minute ferry ride ends at the tip of Bolivar Peninsula, a long, thin piece of land that, like Galveston, was also ravaged by a hurricane, this time in 2008. Later, we had to veer off of Highway 87. A long segment was partially destroyed by a hurricane in 1989. So now you have to drive up and around McFadden National Wildlife Refuge instead of driving through it along the coast. According to this historical marker at our picnic area, this is High Island, a small community atop a 45-foot high salt dome. That elevation makes this spot much safer from flooding and higher than anywhere else along the Gulf of Mexico between Alabama and the Yucatan Peninsula. With all these constant reminders of water, and knowing that we're staying in the Gulf area for several more days, we stopped at one of America's $20 billion general locations for flip-flops. Okay, stop. I have to address something here. At this point in the drive, a bug hit the windshield. I didn't notice it at the time, but it's plainly visible on the camera. So try to ignore it for the rest of today's video. Thanks. Sorry about that. When Spain was establishing those missions back in San Antonio, one other thing they had to deal with was their touchy relationship with the French to the east. This bridge over Sabine Lake connects the lands of those two forces these days. You go up it in Texas, and when you come back down the other side, you're bienvenue on Louisiana. It may not be beautiful right away, but hey, the names are already in French. And the landscape is promising. One reason I chose this obscure route is I'm hoping to see alligators. A couple years before this, I saw one on a highway in Florida, and I didn't capture it on camera, but that's what made me buy a dash cam in the first place. Louisiana Highway 82 has its own ferry. It only takes about 10 minutes, so you'll only have time for the quickest of naps. But again, it's free. Highway 82 is also part of the Creole Nature Trail. This scenic drive is the only officially designated All-American road in Louisiana. It highlights the wildlife and marshes of this part of the state. One bridge takes you over the Mermentau River. The Mermentau River area is famous for, among other things, being a possible location for buried treasure from the 19th century pirate Jean Lafitte. Lafitte was an interesting guy, kind of a folk hero. He made millions from smuggling and piracy in the Gulf of Mexico, including at a base he established on Galveston Island. At various times he was one step ahead or one step behind the law in Louisiana, but he was commended by future President General Andrew Jackson for helping the United States fight the British at the Battle of New Orleans. And that was after he turned down an offer from King George III, yes, that King George, to fight for Britain against the US. But then he became a spy for Spain. Jean Lafitte even looks like a pirate. So now that's two things we have to look for today: alligators and buried pirate booty. Highway 82 got less swampy and more farmy as it turned north towards Abbeville. And I'll go ahead and tell you now that this turtle was the closest we got all day to an alligator. Abbeville was our destination and the only big town since Galveston. And all that driving through the Louisiana swamp made us hungry, and the lady at the hotel gave us a recommendation for dinner at a place called Bourbon Street Deli in one half of a gas station. This was the best food of the trip so far. Shrimp po' boys with duck and andouille gumbo. I'm not going to describe it because I'll start drooling while I'm trying to record this narration. Just know that it was as great as it sounds. Before driving back to the hotel, we stopped so I could clean the windshield, finally. And looking at this footage now, I don't know why I was grinning like this. I mean, that's a happy-looking guy. Maybe it's delirium from the humid swamps. Maybe it was just a great Cajun, or was it Creole, dinner. Maybe it's simple old travel ecstasy, us being in an exciting new state. There's nothing else like Louisiana. Tomorrow, the good food continues, and so does the influence of Louisiana's favorite rapscallion. On a spectacular, if unsettling, walk through the thick swamp in Jean Lafitte National Historic Park and Preserve, we even finally get to see some reptiles, very up close and personal.